In an ideal world, we'll get our exposure correct on camera all the time. But in reality, that doesn't always happen. Like with this image. The exposure isn't very good, and we can see that in the shadows and the blacks. There's a lot of area that's really blocked up. And so what I want to do is I want to improve this image, and I want to improve it so that I can reproduce it a little bit more easily and readily. Because all of this black detail here, which is lost, just isn't going to work out if I want to print the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on what are called the clipping indicators. You can do that by pressing the J key. This will show me if I have any kind of a loss of detail, either with my shadows or my highlights. Looking at the histogram, we can see, yeah, we have a lot of clipping happening here in the blacks. The highlights, well, those are okay, right? Well, with this indicator turned on, I'm going to go ahead and decrease my blacks amount. Okay, well, that made the blacks much better already. It gave me a little bit of a gap over here on the histogram. Well, increase my fill light as well, we can see that that's even moving over a little bit more. Now at this particular juncture, something else we might want to do is to increase our overall exposure a bit, and then also add a little bit of brightness. Now a lot of times when we do this, one of the things that we may want to then do is work on contrast. And watch the histogram as I modify this. As I increase this to the right, it pushes everything out. As I decrease it, it pushes everything back towards the middle. So sometimes what happens is, as we find a good exposure, we'll need to add a little bit of contrast and then go back perhaps, add a little bit more fill light. And it's a lot of give and take between all of these controls until we find particular tone settings which really work for an image. The last thing I want to point out here is as we change the overall tone of a photograph, it may affect the way we see color temperature. Like with this image, I think that it would be nice just to warm it up just a bit there so we have a little bit more warmth in the image now that it's brighter. Alright, well I'm going to press the J key to turn off those clipping indicators. And what I want to do is look at the before and after. We're going to do that by pressing the backslash key. So when I press the backslash key, here's the before. And then with just a few small adjustments, here's the after. A much stronger photograph. Alright, well how can we take this perhaps even further? Well, one of the things that we can do is we can drag our sliders while holding down the Option key if you're on a Mac, the Alt key while you're on a PC. And what that will do is it will show you any kind of a clipping here. And here as it gets black and we can see these different colors from the channels representing the different channels, we can see which areas are being clipped. If I let go of the Option or the Alt key, we now have that view of the image. Now this is really helpful when we're dragging our sliders around, like let's say exposure. Again, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, click on my slider and drag to the right. So I can increase the exposure up till right about here, one full stop where I start losing detail, and then I'll drop it down to find the sweet spot, let go of the Option or the Alt key, and here I can see the photograph. So we can use this view in order to dial in our controls. Now my blacks controls is still bad, so let's pretend we need to correct that because we didn't realize that there was a problem there. We'll hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and then click on that slider. Okay, there's definitely some clipping, so I'm just going to decrease that till I see some clipping, which I think is a little bit more reasonable just in some of these smaller areas, and now the image is good to go. So we can access these clipping indicators either by holding down our Option or Alt key, or by pressing the J key to turn on the clipping indicators in the histogram, or if we press the J key again to turn that off, we can also simply click on these triangles here, and that will turn those on, or click again to turn those off.